gentlemen, hello there and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I am Mr. Warren Hayes. Not only is this another edition, this is the last edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show for 2019, folks. Because we're done with Christmas now. That thing is a thing of the past, all the holly jolly thingy nonsense. Now we're looking already forward into 2020. This is where we're at right now, and I want to thank you all for joining me here on Boxing Day. If you are part of the Commonwealth of everything good and British in the world, this is something that we've all celebrated today. But mostly, I hope you celebrated Christmas yesterday. I hope you had the opportunity to hang out with loved ones, family, loved ones and or family, because sometimes family, right? It can be exclusive. It's not mutually exclusive, but it can be exclusive depending on your family, right? But I hope everyone had a wonderful December 25th. It is December 26th today, 2019, and it is exciting stuff. I'm glad everyone is here joining me live on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Because yes, I do record this live every Thursday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. And we do have a holly jolly group of well-wishers and carolers here with us this evening. We have Tim Traver, who is here. How you doing, Tim? Robert Larry is here. Carlos has joined us as well. Aaron Jays fan. Mr. Fretz. Benoit is here as well. And Soul is here. Lots of great, fantastic people in the chat this evening. And, you know, if you've never taken the opportunity of joining us live, you should. And if you are watching live right now, why don't you give the video a little like, a little thumbs up here on YouTube? That's fantastic. Whether you're watching it live or on demand, well, at your own accord, well, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And it'll still help the video quite a bit. It's always a fantastic way to help out the show. David Reed, hello. How are you? Welcome to the chat. Just popped in. He said hello. And you see how grateful a host I am. I love people coming into the chat. I love it. I love people jumping in. Chris Jacobs. Hi. How are you, Chris Jacobs? See, folks are just pouring in. You got to come check it out sometime live. But, you know, if you are watching on your own time on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, thank you very much. Or maybe you're listening to this on your favorite podcast apps, because the Mr. Warren Hayes Show is available on all podcast applications, from Apple to Google and Spotify and Stitcher and Podbean and everything in between. It's there. You just have to look for Mr. Warren Hayes, and then you can give us a like, a review, a follow, a subscription, whatever it is you do. Hey, you know what? I am really getting closer to 1,000 subscribers here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. And, you know, compared to many bigger websites or YouTube channels, that may seem insignificant. But, man, I've been plugging at this for a while, and 1,000 is a big, big deal. It's a big milestone. I'm at about, last time I checked, or at least, I'll be honest, the last time Kristen Ashley checked for me, because she's been keeping a tally for me, I was at 866, if memory serves me right. So we're not that far off. So if you know anyone who's not subscribed, or if you're watching right now and you're not a subscriber of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, just jump in and do it. Just hit that subscribe button. I'd love to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. I don't know if that's feasible or possible or something that that is entirely realistic, but, you know, you got to give it that old college try. It may not come across as such, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm a little bit under the weather. I'm running a fever, not feeling the best. So bear with me tonight if I'm not as exuberant as usual. Or maybe I am just as the same as usual. I don't know. Don't forget, by the way, once we're done this evening, you can join me again for the post stream over on patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes. I will continue later on in the show after we're done with the weekly inspection. The big thing here tonight is I want to talk about my top wrestlers of the decade of the 2010s. I want to talk about that, and I want to continue the discussion over with you guys over at over on the Patreon side of things. So come and join me after this post, after this stream, jump onto Patreon, patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes, and bring your own suggestions, your own ideas, who you think, if you're coming to join us live, who you think is the wrestler of the decade, or if you have a few, because I couldn't settle on one. I don't expect you to settle on one either. Why would I put this kind of pressure on you when I'm not even capable of doing it to myself? No, none of that nonsense. So that's it. Come and join me. Come and join me there once we're done here. And otherwise, I will be back on the SmackDown post show for Fightful tomorrow over on youtube.com/SRS Wrestling. The Fightful channel is not back yet. All signs point to it being settled sometime, hopefully early in 2020. But so, yes, over on Sean's own channel, that's where the Fightful stuff is happening. So that's what we're going to be doing. Fightful, not Fightful, youtube.com/SRS Wrestling, or you can go to FightfulWrestling.com to make sure that you don't miss it, or FightfulPods.com. All the stuff is there as well. And of course, don't forget to follow the #1 spot for all your women's wrestling coverage that you could ask for, even the coverage you didn't ask for but didn't realize you needed, and then you're like, hey, I'm glad I didn't ask for it because this is fantastic. It's like a sweet surprise. Belltobelles.com. That's BELLTOBELLES.com. Make sure you check that out. Subscribe to or follow Bell to Bells on Twitter. And also, you can find the Bell to Bells podcast as well on podcast applications. We actually launched our first show a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, not this past Sunday, the Sunday before that. In-Ring Riot, where we talk about women's wrestling. Go figure that. It's me. I'm hosting. We have Kristen Ashley, who is the editor-in-chief, co-owner of Bell to Bells. And on top of that, we have Dan and Emily Reed, owners, promoters of Pro Wrestling Eve, who are there as well on the panel with us. We talk about a whole bunch of stuff, including some real interesting thoughts that Dan and Emily had in regards to independent promotions, the survival of independent promotions in a WWE world. Very interesting insights, probably not the ones you'd expect. You should go check that out. That's another great podcast you should be listening to. And we're excited to bring another episode, which will probably be in January. We had a good time, all four of us. We hope to do it again. Did you get any cool gifts for Christmas? Look what I got. Hang on a second. I'm a big board game, card game guy. Look at this. Where are my nerds at in the chat right now? I got the Binding of Isaac card game. That's my son who gave that to me for Christmas this year. I'm really excited. It's a card game based on the indie video game. It's fantastic stuff. I can't wait. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I definitely will over the holidays because I'm still on vacation. Once I'm done being sick, I think everything will be just fine and dandy. Hope you guys have a good, are going to keep having a good time. How you doing, Dave? Good guy Dave joined us in the chat. Excuse me. Let's go right ahead and do the weekly wrestling inspection. There we go. No technical screw-ups this week. I am getting better at this. Mostly WWE stuff we're going to be talking about this week. No AEW, neither Dark nor Dynamite. So, and besides, my own schedule was a little overtaken with Christmas as well as yours, but we're still going for it here, folks. We're still going to talk about it. Let me get my notes over here. That's better. Okay. Let's go straight off the bat. We're going to start this final episode, this final weekly inspection of the year by doling out some hot trash as we go back to SmackDown last Friday. The Miz, over the past couple of weeks, leading into TLC, was worried about the whereabouts of Daniel Bryan. As we recall, Daniel Bryan had been dragged through the ring and was getting his hair pulled out of him by The Fiend, and then poof, he disappeared. And then The Miz took it upon himself to find out what happened to Daniel Bryan. He got mixed up into this Fiend stuff, which then led The Fiend to take umbrage, or Bray Wyatt anyway, take umbrage with The Miz's involvement into this situation. It's like mind your own business kind of thing, right, Miz? But then went a little further and, had his home invaded and had all these weird stuff happening. And then this week, Daniel Bryan just comes back into the ring to cut a promo. The Miz comes out, and the Miz is like, we're glad you're back. Daniel, so on and so forth, Why? Ladies and gentlemen, why was The Miz not steaming mad at Daniel Bryan? I was convinced when he came out to the ring that The Miz was going to be like, yo, Daniel, where the fuck were you? I was looking all over for you. I was calling Bree. She didn't know where you were. No one knew where you were. I was looking for you. Hell, Bray Wyatt snuck into my home doing paranormal shit and scared the bejeebus out of my wife and daughter. And that's all because of you. Where the hell were you? I demand an explanation. But no. Instead, it's like, hey, we're dads. We're cool. We get along. We can relate. That made zero sense. 0 cents to me. Absolute 0 cents. And then it goes on. The nonsensical stuff. Where they start talking about who's going to face Bray Wyatt next and so on and so forth. And The Miz says that he wants to get back at Bray Wyatt by taking what Bray Wyatt cherishes most in this whole world, and that's the Universal title. And I'm going to tell you something, guys and gals. I don't think Bray Wyatt cherishes the Universal title all that much. I think there's a bunch of other things he cherishes way before that. I think the Universal title for him is a prop. I don't think it's the thing that he cherishes the most. Miz was like, oh, he came after whatever I cherish the most. I will go after what he cherishes the most. No. Doesn't make sense. And it all went downhill because Baron Corbin came out with his corny goddamn lines. My God. He tried to do some sick burns on Miz and Bryan. Where it was like, he told Miz something. What did he say? He said, your daughter should have more of Marie's genes because then what happened to her wouldn't have been so scary. And I'm not sure what that means. Does he mean that Miz is a coward or that Maurice is a monster? I don't understand. I don't understand what that meant. I really don't understand what that meant. And then on top of that, and then he compares Daniel Bryan, who's all shaved now. He's more like American Dragon Daniel Bryan now. He looks like Baby Yoda. And I'm like, my God. I know, WWE. I know you love to be able to sneak in your pop culture references, but this made no sense. Daniel Bryan does not look like Baby Yoda. That was so forced and stupid. And of course, this was the opening segment, so y'all know that you start off your show with a talky talk segment, and that's already that's strike one when it comes to your boy Warren. This was all stupid. When we keep giving some hot trash, let's keep giving some hot trash out. The family angles. Now, I give a lot of shit to AEW on the Wednesday Night War podcast, which we didn't do this week, but we'll be back next week over on Fightful. I give a lot of shit to AEW because they're running similar angles at the same time. They're running the Dark Order and the Nightmare Collective, which is practically the two angles where it's like, join us, come join. And now they're doing it with Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley. Join us, John. Come join the Inner Circle. Join the Dark Order. Join the Nightmare Collective. Well, I have to give shit to the WWE for all these family angles that they ran on Friday. Oh, we're fathers, so you don't mess around with our family. And then they do it with Lacey Evans later on in the evening. It's like, you don't mess with a woman's daughter. And my God. And then they're not touching on it anymore, but we didn't see Roman on Friday either. But they haven't mentioned, the fact that the whole angle with Baron Corbin is because he wanted to be like the locker room leader, wanted to be perceived as a locker room leader. And then we have a locker room leadership thing over on Raw at the same time. I mean, come on. There has to be ways to be more creative than what you're doing right now. There has to be. With the amount of staff and resources and writers that you have at your disposition, WWE, it's stupid that you're running the same ideas on the same show. The family things are all on the same show, too. It's blah. Can you tell I'm under the weather? Oh, Kristen, I'm sorry. I forgot the red cardigan. I am so sorry because I'm a little under the weather. This is my comforting hoodie. I told Kristen I'd wear my red cardigan on the stream this evening. But then I started running a fever, and then I get in my comfy stuff, and this is my comfy hoodie here. I apologize. I'll make it up to you. And all of you, because you haven't lived until you've seen the splendor of the red cardigan. David Reed says, logic is not WWE's strong suit is probably the greatest understatement of the chat so far. That's for sure. Ben says the Universal title went back on the shelf of irrelevancy. D-Generation MC, by the way, welcome to the chat. Says WWE chasing mainstream approval is like that fat kid asking the head cheerleader out to prom. So, let's move on to another subject. Let's change gears. There's a lot of trash to dole out. Let's give some cool beans here. Let's give some cool beans to the Ham. We have to give some cool beans to the Ham. I'm going to expound on this a little bit because I love what they're doing with Otis. I really do. A couple of weeks ago when he gave the Ham to Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn sort of, he's like, he threw it to the floor, and he was super distraught because it was like he was so earnest in wanting him to have a happy holidays. It was a nice gift. And he was like, and you really felt for the guy. And then this week, the Secret Santa with Mandy giving him the kiss, and the way his face lit up when he got the ham and the peck on the cheek. That's brilliant. That is, if they keep down this road with Otis, that is absolutely fantastic. It makes so much sense, and it makes him relatable. You remember when he started, and he was, where he was sort of, he'd see Mandy Rose and he'd start convulsing and going, pretty lady, This makes him human. It makes him relatable. We're like, we're behind you, big guy. Even though I don't know how Mandy Rose is going to end up treating him, but this was absolutely fantastic. And of course the Ham was something special, but instead of going through the entire the entire spiel one more time, let's go back to the SmackDown post show from last week that you can see right here on my channel, but that I did for Fightful, and let's relive the moment where I discussed the Ham. Give me a second here. I'm gonna make sure everything is okay. I think we're good. I'll be more prepared next time. Okay, so let's relive the Ham. Now I'm thinking instantly, the Otis establishes himself right then and there as a ham connoisseur. So he takes the ham from Mandy and she gives him a kiss, and he has this look of complete bliss on his face. So I'm wondering what kind of ham Mandy Rose gave our boy Otis Dozovich? Did she give him a Black Forest ham? Did she give him a country cured ham? Maybe a picnic ham? Maybe she gave him a honey or maple glazed ham. I don't know. I don't think he had Serrano ham, which is probably the best damn ham you could have. Established in Spain, dry cured, it's fantastic. Maybe it's Capicola from Italy. Why couldn't it be that? A Scotch ham? Maybe not. Not canned ham. It didn't look like that kind of ham. Maybe it was a speck ham. Or maybe a Smithfield ham. Have you ever heard of Smithfield ham, folks? Smithfield ham comes from they come from a city in Virginia. Smithfield. And this ham, to prepare this type of ham, it has to be coated with salt, sodium nitrate, sugar, and you refrigerate it for 5 days. Then you pull it out, you salt it again, and you refrigerate it for 1 day per pound of meat. Then they wash it, refrigerate it for another 2 weeks, smoke it for 10 days, then leave it age for 6 to 12 months. Maybe that's exactly the kind of ham that Otis Dozovich received tonight. And I would go as far as to say that maybe that is what made his heart melt. Maybe not the peck on the cheek. Perhaps it was the tip-top quality of a Smithfield ham that he received, a true gourmet ham, which makes it all the more devastating that the ham was completely mishandled outside during the match. We don't know that. This is the kind of stuff that we need WWE to clear up. This is the kind of essential stuff that we need to know as fans moving forward. Yes. Carlos says, we want a ham pod. I probably could milk that a little bit. Milk your own ham? And Harry Balls, yes. Hey, how you doing? Says, more about salted smoked meat, sausages, please. Yeah, I mean, look, we could go down a very, very deep rabbit hole here. We could go very, very, very deep if we wanted to. But one at a time. I want to say hello to Kirby Friedman and JD Sucks. Also joined us in the chat. How's everyone? Okay, let's keep going. Let's move on to Raw. We're going to keep the cool beans going here because I liked Raw. And here's the thing. I really hope that in 2020 SmackDown improves. I really do, because I don't think SmackDown is a strong show. I really, really don't. I think it's the weakest show that we see on a consistent basis of all the weekly wrestling television programs that we have. I honestly and sincerely believe that. I think Raw is a better product. I think Dynamite is a better product. NXT is a better product. And NWA Power is a better product. SmackDown disappoints more than not. And it kind of did again this week. It felt like nothing of value happened. Now, the tag team that happened at the end between Dolphin Corbin versus Miz and Daniel Bryan, and then immediately as the match finishes, they're like, oh, next week, triple threat. I'm like, okay, what was this match for? It was so throwaway, it bothered me. It really did. But let's move on to Raw. The cool beans that I'm going to give out. Look, everything Kevin Owens touched on Raw on Monday, although no, I know it was from 2 Mondays ago and this was tape, but bear with me. Everything that he touched on Monday was fantastic. Everything. Look, his no DQ match with Mojo Rawley was short, it was punchy, and it was fun. It wasn't a 15-minute, 20-minute thing, but for the time that was allotted to the guys, which wasn't all that much, I thought they did a fantastic job, and it was a good good match. It was hard hitting. It was easy to get into. You know, this mini running feud that he has with Mojo. I thought this was fantastic. The beatdown that Kevin Owens took after from the AOP, again, great stuff. He sold his ass off. Like, he knows right now that he's part of he's part of the hottest angle in WWE right now. Because I really love the AOP Seth Rollins pairing, and I think it makes sense. I think it's fantastic. Everything connects. And Kevin is in it, and he knows that he has to make it work because he stands to benefit from it working out. So not tonight, but then later on that night, or immediately after the beatdown, you had Samoa Joe. Now, Samoa Joe, this is another set of cool beans. And I think that I should blink it out here just to really emphasize just how much cool beans. Okay, Kevin Owens, everything he touched, cool beans. But you know what else was cool beans? Samoa Joe on goddamn commentary. Everything, look, he's been good since he's been thrown on the commentary table. But he himself is making this storyline feel alive, essential, and important. The monologue that he had, everyone's calling it the monologue. I'm not making this up. This is the monologue that he had as the AOP were done with Kevin Owens. As Kevin Owens was stumbling his way back, was phenomenal. Like, you understood just the entire gravitas of this whole situation and how serious it was. The lines that he said, my father was a bad man. My family is full of bad men. These guys, they're not bad men, they're thugs. And I'm like, ugh. Samoa Joe's promos work because Samoa Joe believes everything he says. And that's the difference between him and a lot of people cutting their stuff. Like, he buys into everything, and he understands how important this part of storytelling is to get this across. He is making, over the past couple of weeks, the way he has been talking about Akam and Razar, he is making the AOP. He is making them. He's transforming them into our eyes, right in front of our eyes, I should say, as the most credible, legitimate threat on the entire roster right now. And this whole thing, and this is the brilliant part of it, it all came full circle. And I'm like, were they building this for weeks? Because if they did, god damn, this was brilliant. At the end, when they want to toss Mysterio through the commentary table, and Joe's just sitting back and he's like, nope, I ain't moving. And they're asking him to get up, to get the hell out. And he says, if I get up, it's your asses. And I'm like, have they been building right up to this moment where they want to get Samoa Joe involved in this storyline, and this is the best way they could find, and it is the absolute best way, most creative way to get him involved. They pick him up and they put him through. Remember, like, Seth Rollins comes in, he's like, no, there's no fights here, no fights, and then he passes by AOP, and you hear him distinctly saying, finish him, and they just go right at him, and they put him through the table. My God, that was so good. That was so good. And this is one of these moments where you have to underscore when WWE does a good job. This was so well done. And like I said, I don't know. I can only hope that they were doing this, that they were building to this moment of the past couple of weeks with Joe singling out AOP on commentary to build to this moment. Because if so, didn't see it coming, didn't think they'd go down this route. I was completely surprised. Creative way to get Joe involved in a feud, because listen, he was injured. He had like what, a finger, he broke his finger or something like that. Clearly, if he took a bump, clearly he's okay. He's been given the okay to come back. So, why not? Why not do it this way? I thought this was such a good job at storytelling here. That was fantastic. Pardon me. Twan Mac, how you doing? Welcome to the chat. Says SmackDown sucks. Between the time fillers of Corbin and Elias taking up too much TV time, amongst other things. David Reed agrees. Says KO Joe Ray versus Seth AOP is going to rule. Harry Ball says Samoa Joe was on point. Dave says Samoa Joe's rant was so good. And we got Carlos and Ben calling him the GOAT. I mean, it's still a mystery to me that Samoa Joe hasn't had a celebrated WWE career this far. I know he's been injured. I really thought that they were going to put the strap on him during the AJ Styles feud for the WWE Championship last year. I really did. Because Joe was so menacingly good, sociopathic. He was fantastic. That's the moment I would have pulled the trigger. So if this leads to bigger, better, fantastic stuff for him, I am all for it, and I am here for it. The Cool Beans train can't hang for long. We're going to give some hot trash to the 24/7 stuff. Look, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to give you a reason. The reason why I'm just doling hot trash to it. We've talked about it before. I don't think they're being as fun with the 24/7 title as they once were. I think it's gotten extremely pedantic at this point. But when the segment starts and you have Vic Joseph, God bless his heart, reading these awful lines saying, you know, if you like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, you'll probably like these hijinks. I'm paraphrasing, but they did draw a direct comparison as to what's going to happen tonight is going to be reminiscent of a National Lampoon's film. And I just threw my hands up for two reasons. First of all, there is no way what you are going to do tonight, WWE, that is even going to be remotely comparable to Christmas Vacation, one of the greatest comedies of all time. Second of all, stop taking your audience for fucking morons, because clearly this is what they're sitting around telling each other in the writers' room. They're saying to each other, well, we could do something like Family Vacation. Oh, so we should tell the audience to expect that, because otherwise they're going to hate it. Or you could just let us make up our mind. Because I tried to look for the parallels between Christmas Vacation and this, and they weren't there. It wasn't zany. There wasn't any dry humor. It was just very, very ham-fisted and a little predictable. Was it fun? It was okay. The segments in and about themselves weren't offensive. They didn't bother me. But what bothered me was being told that this will remind you of this fantastic classic. And I'm like, no. Just because you're trying to ape something doesn't mean you're going to successfully do it. Because you need to have elements put together so that you will have that conviction. You need to have the talent behind it. I swear, Christmas Vacation, the Griswolds, wouldn't have worked if all four elements weren't there. They had a chemistry, they had a dynamic, there was something real happening there that you just can't reproduce with a couple of throwaway skits. Stupid. But then we can go back to some cool beans. Aleister Black Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy each squashing their own jobber. I thought that was cool. Then I kind of got the idea they should have like a squash off. You know, like every week. You know, they each have their own jobber, and they have to time each other, whoever beats them faster. You know, instead of a best of seven, but on times for squashing dudes. And that would probably get both guys over like crazy and would be real fun to watch in the same time. I really liked it. Let's keep going with some cool beans. I'm glad that Becky and Asuka is confirmed. I've enjoyed the fact that Becky has been leaning into history for this one, saying that Asuka's coming out clearly saying that Asuka is the one woman here who's beat the champ clean. I've got something to prove. I have to get back at her. Love that it's happening at Royal Rumble. We've got a full circle here of the year of the man. It's fantastic. I love every part of this booking. It's so good. And I love that she keeps saying, the company tried to protect me this year, giving me tag team matches. She didn't say that, but, making sure that, their golden goose stays fresh, and I'm done with that. I want to fight. And I like that she was, she says, I have to go back to the man. I have to get honest with myself again. And I like that. I like that she's kind of realizing by herself that, oh, wait, I sort of became what I hate. Everything that I hated about Charlotte, I'm sort of becoming it. So no. Give me Asuka. I need to kick her teeth in and maybe get my own teeth kicked in the process. So I really like that. And I love that Asuka came out and cut another wild Japanese promo. I think this is good. But I'm telling you guys and gals, I love the idea of this coming full circle at Royal Rumble. It is so perfect. So absolutely perfect to me. Whatever the outcome may be, probably Becky's going to get her receipt here. I don't see why. I don't see why she'd lose, but it's such good, solid booking. And you know what I like on top of this? And I think I mentioned this last week, but I'm going to mention it again. And I'm going to keep mentioning it because we hammer home the shit, but when they do things right, we have to hammer that home as well. They're letting their women have feuds over wrestling related stuff. There aren't no boyfriends. There aren't no makeup. There's nothing to that extent. You have two women who are competitive. They're paid to fight. There's the champ. The champ wants to fight this other chick because, just because of her ego, because she has something to prove. She has to beat that girl. And the other girl's like, bring it on. And to me, I get into these arguments, I wouldn't say all the time, but often enough where people are like, well, what storylines should you give the women then? This! A wrestling storyline that has to do with wrestling, with people wanting to fight each other. Not because they're women that suddenly we have to rethink our process or go back to grade school or high school or middle school. These are wrestlers. Let them fight for wrestling related things. This all works for me. I'm excited for this. Excuse me. Pardon me. Jamie Small, hello, welcome to the chat. She says, I want to see Asuka 2 belts. Who wouldn't want to see that, though, for being honest? Aaron J's fan. This time, Becky makes Asuka tap. Degeneration MC says, Becky Asuka should be a kick-ass barn. I love me a good barn that can kick some ass. When you go down the country, you go into the country, and you see a barn there, and it just comes right up to you. You're maybe standing out, you move your car off to the side of the street because maybe you just want to stretch your legs a bit. And then that barn just comes over and says, hey, buddy, what are you doing here? What are you doing on the side? This is my side of the street. And that barn just wants to kick your ass. I love me a good barn a kick-ass barn. Oh, burner. Oh, sorry about that. So that was cool. I really like that. Let's get some warm soda. We haven't seen a lot of that tonight. Warm soda for what's in the bag, Eric? What's in the bag, Eric? And warm soda, because I'm still giving this the benefit of the doubt. Until there is exactly a reveal of what's happening, I'm not tired with it. It's entertaining enough. They're giving life to jobber matches, you know. But like I said, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. But there is no way, absolutely no way, that the payoff to whatever is in the box or in the bag can be worth all this build, can be worth week after week of point of view camera shots and Eric Rowan refusing, going nuts when people try to touch his bag or his cage. There's nothing outside of it being the head of Luke Harper, which it'll probably not be. There's nothing in there, I don't think, that is worth this build. I really don't. Or maybe a legitimately feral badger that Eric Rowan opens the cage up and lets it fly, and it actually rends other wrestlers' flesh. Outside of that, I don't see what the payoff is. Degeneration MC says there's a hand inside Rowan's back. Maybe is it Mae Young's child? Robert Larry says Raw's having too much jobber matches that us fans will not want to watch the show. No, I disagree. I don't think there's too much. It depends. I think Raw's striking a really good balance, actually, because right now, outside of NXT, Raw has the most interesting, it has the most complete show wrestling-wise. And I'm okay with jobber matches to establish stars because it's worked, and it's worked recently. It worked for the Viking Raiders. It worked perfectly for them. It's working well for Eric Rowan, I find. And if they let Aleister Black just come in, week out, and smack the face off of a jabroni week after week, I am absolutely okay with that. Sorry I stole your thunder, Ben. Quickly, because I want to get on to other stuff. We're going to get some cool beans for Charlotte versus Chelsea Green. I thought this was a solid match. I kind of like Becky. Was it Becky? Who fought Deonna Purrazzo? Was it Becky or... Yeah, it was Becky, right? I can't remember. My brain just... It's all the Dayquil that I've been taking. I thought the match was okay. I thought Asuka. Yes, thank you, Ben. And thank you, Aaron J's fan. It was Asuka. I thought Deonna versus Asuka was a better match, but this was really good as well. And Chelsea looked good. Charlotte looked good. I like that they were laying into each other. They weren't afraid. They weren't holding back. And man, it's a display of who WWE is sitting on right now. Because if Chelsea Green, who we haven't seen on WWE television at all, Sean Ross Sapp was telling me the other day that the last time Chelsea Green was on cable television was in Lucha Underground. That's the last time she was on cable TV. If we haven't seen her wrestle in such a long time, me, myself, the last time I saw her wrestle was at All In. Not this August, the August before that, 2018. So, or September, whatever, Labor Day. You know what I'm talking, All In. She is so good. And you can just see what kind of depth that the WWE are sitting on as far as their women's division goes. When you see that they're able to pull her out of nowhere and have a great match like that, man, it boggles the mind. And then just this week they had Shotzi Blackheart premiere. She lost to Bianca Belair, but she looked mighty good. It's crazy the amount of people that they have here. You got to wonder sometimes. They have to be kicking themselves regarding Chelsea Green, because they had her on Tough Enough and they decided not to sign her. They have to be kicking themselves a little bit. But you know what? It was beneficial for her. It was very, very beneficial for her. I got a couple of NWA power notes as well. I'm gonna give some cool beans to Nick Aldis finally being a heel. I'm digging this. I like it. It makes sense for him to want to protect himself, surround himself with a stable of people like that. The Wild Card and Camille. Apparently, it's all been part of the plan. Camille wasn't really a wild card. She wasn't really off doing her own thing. No, it was all part of the plan. He worked us all. And all this had been teeter-tottering on that fine line between face and heel, which I'm okay with, but I think as a heel, he's going to work great, especially if it's going to be against Tim Storm, at least to begin with. And I'm giving another cool beans here to Tim Storm's promo from this week. Man, Tim Storm is a guy that he's a guy that shouldn't be wrestling anymore, but he still is. And they're booking him so well. So well. You know, just being this earnest, hardworking guy. You know, he starts his promo saying, that Mama Storm turned 95 this week. He's talking about how she retired, how his father, when he left, took every penny they owned, that she worked at $8 an hour before retiring. He's relatable. He speaks the truth. When you see that guy talk to you, all you can feel is sympathy. He's got that natural charisma about him, but they're not trying to imprint him with things that don't stick with him. He's just down to earth, and because honestly, with the talent that they have on Power right now, we should not be turning to Tim Storm, who, no disrespect, whose best years are behind him, wrestling-wise, work rate-wise. We should not be turning to him as a top babyface, yet here we are. And I believe in it. I buy it completely. And I want to see him kick Nick Aldis' ass. I really do. Because he has been a dick to Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis has been a dick to him. I don't know. They're just doing it right. Everyone on that show can cut a promo. Some better than others, but those who can, oh my goodness. I'm buying it. Good. It's real good. And even if he's just used to build up the heel persona, to build up Aldis's heel persona, I'm okay with that. That'll be fantastic. That's what it's for. That's what your good baby faces are for too, to build up a good old dastardly heel. Honestly, we wouldn't have Jay White if it wasn't for Hiroshi Tanahashi. I'll tell you that much. There we go. Enough of this weekly wrestling inspection. Guys and gals, if you are watching this live, thank you so much, and do consider giving the video a thumbs up here on YouTube. That is absolutely precious to me, if you haven't already. You can also share the link out, get some friends in here. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'm inching very, very close to 1,000 subs, so that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool if you wanted to give a subscription. 1,000 by the end of the year. That'd be neat. And end of the year, usually, this is the time of the year where we always talk about, wrestler of the year, match of the year. But it's special this year, isn't it? Because we're ending a decade. We're ending a decade, folks. That doesn't happen every year. It happens every 10 years. So I put my brain to... I'm not that great a guy when it comes to year recaps. I forget a lot of stuff, or there's too many. Sometimes there's just too many good things to sort of package and say, this is my match of the year, this is my wrestler of the year. It's really difficult. It's stuff that I really find tough to do. So when people on Twitter and wherever, Carlos and Ray Deathray, by the way, hello. If people, and there's people, out there on the internet that have been talking about, the wrestlers of the decade, and that got me thinking a bit, because my God, there's a lot of people that could enter that contendership, and I can't sit here and say outright, here, this person here is the wrestler of the decade. I can't, because there's too much criteria. There's too much stuff that you have to put into consideration, and a wrestler's value to his or her career, promotions can vary so much. So I decided to talk about who I think who are my top 3 wrestlers of the decade. And I'm not putting them in any particular order. I'm not saying this is number 1, number 2, number 3, or in reverse order. These 3 wrestlers here, to me, had the most defining 2010s and should be considered some of the greatest of this decade for multiple reasons. And of course, chat, you are more than invited to discuss this. And we will continue this discussion on the post stream over on YouTube. On patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes. We're going to chat about that later. Talk about other choices that I had popping in my head, but didn't make the cut for the top 3. So here we go. Warren's top 3 wrestlers of the year. And we are going to start talking about AJ Styles. AJ Styles has a long storied career, right? He started, in 2010, at the start of the decade, he was in TNA Impact, right? Double Kazuya, how you doing? Welcome to the chat. He was in TNA Impact at the start of the decade in 2010. He had been there for years. Like, if there is one guy that you can say was TNA grown, a stalwart, a guy who was there and stayed with it through thick and thin, it's AJ Styles. He was there back when it was still part of the NWA. So, he wrestled for Ring of Honor throughout that indie appearances, but make no mistake, AJ Styles was a TNA guy. But I don't want to talk about the early 2000s. We're talking about the past decade. So we start off 2010, and AJ Styles is part of Fortune, which is Ric Flair's stable within the company. And he's being billed as the new Nature Boy, styling and profiling, wearing the robes. And I don't know if y'all watching right now watch TNA back then, or are even familiar with it. God bless AJ. He's not the most naturally charismatic guy. It's not his promo work that ever got him over. I think we can all agree on that. There was a little something uncomfortable, a little off, to have him trying to parade like Ric Flair, one of the most naturally charismatic dudes of all time. It's not a gimmick that suited him well, right? But he, throughout 2000, this part of in TNA, he was heavyweight champion a number of times. He had excellent matches with Kurt Angle, but I mean like classics with Kurt Angle. And everything was going fantastic, and then something happened. He left TNA. And this is something that no one ever saw coming, because he was such a, like I said, a stalwart. ends up going to New Japan Pro Wrestling, becomes the leader of Bullet Club, and goes through a transformation that awakens the senses to anyone who was still even remotely doubting who AJ Styles was. Because now he became aggressive, violent, and was able to turn out consistently great matches one after the other. And wins the IWGP Heavyweight Championship on his first attempt. This is not something you see every day in New Japan. He's actually a two-time. He won it twice this decade here. He was the unquestionable MVP of the G1 in 2014. He was so instrumental to that event that year. He was so good. And Styles, throughout his time in New Japan, put on impeccable matches with their best and their shiniest members, generating a level of hype for him that was remarkable, that was unheard of. And when I'm talking the best and brightest, and when I'm talking about great matches, I'm talking about every match he's had with Hiroshi Tanahashi. They were all fantastic. He had a match in 2015 against Shibata. A banger of a goddamn match if you ever did see one. And the sad part is they only wrestled once. And in Japan, one of the thrills of having these matches is to see the rematches, because the rematches, as opposed to WWE where fighting each other over and over again is considered more of a storyline device or a punishment to a certain degree maybe. Here, that's part of the fun. And everyone will never get to see AJ Styles versus Katsuyori Shibata 2. And that's a tragedy. This match was so good. His match with Okada that ended his second reign, that ended Styles' second reign, was downright amazing. And of course, the Wrestle Kingdom 9 match against Shinsuke, which everyone got excited about when Shinsuke joined WWE 2 years ago. But then even the most unthinkable thing happened outside of him leaving TNA, going to New Japan, reaching heights of success, unparalleled heights of success for a Gaijin wrestler in the company. He, in 2016, at the Royal Rumble, AJ Styles enters at number 3. In a moment that people will remember for the rest of their lives. If you were a wrestling fan there and you saw that happen live, you probably have goosebumps at me just mentioning the thing. The place went cuckoo crazy, despite the fact that the camera couldn't peel away from Roman Reigns for some reason. Everyone knew what was happening, and he got the Iron Man treatment as well. Number 3. First show, number 3, Iron Man. And it's as memorable a moment as anything that WWE will try to shove down our throats for the past, over the next few years. And his reign, his time in WWE was super successful. And this is look, okay. The entire career, throughout his entire career, AJ Styles had to fight through the barriers of the mid-card to prove himself as a top-tier level talent. You know, Cody Rhodes likes to call himself from undesirable to undeniable. I gotta tell you, kudos to him for elevating himself beyond his station. And I'm doing air quotes here. But to me, the real guy, the real undeniable was AJ Styles, cutting those corny-ass promos and that dipshit haircut he used to have to raise himself to this day as being unquestionably one of the greatest wrestlers to have ever done the thing of all time. And I'm not just talking about the past 10 years. Styles is one of the greatest of all time. And I'll fight anyone who even tries to say the opposite. Brian Lewis, how you doing? He became one of so that's what he's been doing all his career. He didn't have to go to WWE. AJ Styles was a made man in New Japan. He was the man in TNA. In New Japan, he was untouchable as well. He didn't have to go to WWE, but he did. He became one of WWE's biggest stars in less than a year. And he still holds that it factor. Still considered at 42 years old, one of the best goddamn wrestlers in the world today. He's won the US title. He's won the WWE title. This is a guy who is born and bred on the indies, who is a TNA product, who went to Japan, and yet, despite all of those things, which when going to WWE is never a guarantee of success, maybe some people would even argue that it's not just a guarantee of success. We'll try to keep you muzzled a bit and elevate our own homegrown talent instead. He became a favored wrestler to Vince McMahon. He's the guy who ended the championship reign of the former WWE champion Jinder Mahal. I shouldn't have done that with my sore throat. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but Vince likes him. He's entrusted him with his title, a long reign with the WWE Championship, still putting him in prime booking positions. But the thing is that he didn't have to go to WWE. All his career was about showing that the smaller guys could be put on the main event scene. He did it in TNA. It was the same thing in Japan. Maybe you could argue in Japan it's a little easier to do, but he did it again in WWE. He did it again in the biggest promotion on the planet, and he handled the pressure, and he was there the whole way. And he can still operate. He can still work at an extremely high level. It's crazy. AJ Styles, to me, is unquestionably one of the top wrestlers of the decade. Let's see what's going on here. Conrad, how you doing? Let's see here. D-Generation MC says, AJ succeeded in every company he wrestled for this decade, if not his entire career. Look, I'm going to tell you, he stayed with TNA for the major part of his career. So just on that, yeah, I'd call that a success. Ben says Daniel Bryan is a lot like AJ. He just had his WWE opportunity earlier. Robert Larry says, I can see AJ with another title run before he retires from WWE. Devil Kazuya says, I'm so happy that AJ has gotten a good WWE run so the general audience can see how amazing he is. I agree. And Aaron Chase fan says, beating Jinder is why he is a wrestler of the decade. Well, those were one of my choices, right? Not necessarily my top choice. We're going to go to my other choice. And we're going to head to New Japan for this one. And we're going to talk about Hiroshi Tanahashi. In 2009, it started Hiroshi Tanahashi's elevation, true elevation. There's a lot of arguments that can be made that it happened before that in the mid-2000s, early 2000s with the Three Musketeers and so on and so forth. But in 2009, he had a match with the Great Muta, and it was a passing of the torch to Tanahashi. And here's the one thing. Here's why I think Hiroshi Tanahashi was important. And I'm not going to get into a big New Japan history, but there's one thing you have to keep in mind. The 2000s were not kind to New Japan Pro Wrestling. The gates were down. Creative was in the pits. We were in the midst of Inokiism. I invite you to check that out if you're not aware of what Inokiism. But Inoki was in charge of creative at the time, and he was trying to create a combination of MMA and wrestling, like wrestling but also shooting. So he had MMA guys and wrestlers fight each other, and it was very, very confusing. And created a lot of missteps, a lot of problems with creative, pushing Shinsuke Nakamura way too early. Anyway, I invite you to go take a look at that. But the 2000s were a bit of a dark period for New Japan. And based on a lot, lots of striking, lots of, just violence, hard wrestling. And what Tanahashi wanted to do, of course, accompanied with booking, but what he wanted to do was kind of make wrestling fun to a certain extent. Still keep the serious aspect of it, but also make it fun. When he won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, you know what he started to do? He started to thank the fans at the end of his matches. He'd celebrate with the fans. He'd shake their hands going in and out of the ring. He'd do air guitar sessions, right? We see a lot of that. Tanahashi with the air guitar in the ring with his theme and doing air guitar. I'm going to tell you, a lot of wrestling purists didn't care about it much as, this is not behavior becoming of a world champion, kind of thing. But the way that he started connecting with the fans was unprecedented to a certain extent. Since New Japan Wrestling always had more of a focus on the sport than the theatrics, what Tanahashi was doing, while not completely unseen at any point given in time, was unique, especially for the period that they were trying to pull themselves out of. In 2011, we're going to start talking about the decade here. In 2011 he truly had his biggest reign. It was truly the biggest year he had, and transformed him into the Tanahashi that we knew who he was, he turned him into the Tanahashi we know today. Thank you, Dayquil. At Wrestle Kingdom 5, he defeated Satoshi Kojima, who had just come back he had been back a year. And he had won the IWGP Championship, and it wasn't a very popular thing to do at the time, but at Wrestle Kingdom 5, Tanahashi defeated Kojima, and the fans from that point on saw him as the ace of New Japan. The Japanese John Cena that a lot of people called him. People, they just wanted to, he went and celebrated with people, they just wanted to shake his hand, pat him on the back. They wanted him to sweat on their towels, which is still something that he does today. He tied Nagata's Nagata's record for the most defenses of the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at 10 by defeating Nagata. He broke the record at Wrestle Kingdom 6 by defeating Minoru Suzuki. And finally, when he did lose the title of that specific reign, it helped create Kazuchika Okada, because it was Kazuchika Okada who defeated him for the title in 2012, bringing an end to a 404-day reign, 11 defenses. That was a big, big deal. And their legendary feud, Tanahashi and Okada, would be the feud that would define the modern day New Japan Pro Wrestling. When it is such a quintessentially important and essential feud in the history of the company. Tanahashi was an integral part of it. When he lost the title, in the meantime, he had a feud with Kenny Omega for the IC title. He had a feud with Tetsuya Naito for the IC title in 2017. You remember? That was the year that Naito was just tossing the belt all over the place and was completely disrespecting it, and it was getting chipped and busted. Then Tanahashi wanted to win it off him so that he could bring respect back to it, and then he took all the parts of that belt and created the new belt. And despite his injuries, his body breaking down on him, his shoulders, his knees, apparently his knees are extremely arthritic, he won the G1 in 2018. He wins the IWGP champion, and he is the first right to challenge winner who actually won the IWGP championship at Wrestle Kingdom just this year. And you know what was significant about him defeating Kenny Omega? This year in 2019, this is the year that the Elite left. Omega, the Bucks, Cody, Hangman Page, they're all gone. Marty, they all left. So look at the path that this guy took. New Japan comes out of one of the darkest periods in its history and banks on him to pull them out, which he does by recreating a spectacle out of the sport. And we're talking a lot about his accomplishments, but Tanahashi had fantastic matches throughout, and he could tussle with anyone and have extraordinary matches. You cannot compete on his level or what he did and not have extraordinary matches. He was a high flyer. Again, which is something that was not out of the ordinary, but for such a top spot, for him to hit the ropes so much and be flying all over the place, yeah, it was a little unusual, but the crowd got into it. So they rebuild him. They go to him to rebuild New Japan and bring it into the modern era. And he does. Then what does he do? He helps create another star, another important element that will help continue to carry New Japan right into 2020 in Kazuchika Okada. He even helped create Jay White. He had a part in that. Not only is he rebuilding, but he is building as well. And then the Elite leaves. Look at the decision that they took. They being New Japan. The Elite is leaving. A very, very important part of their North American audience, was they were attached to, decide to up and leave. Their World Heavyweight Champion decides to up and leave. What do? Well, give the belt to Tana, and we'll build something with him. You'd be hard-pressed over the past 10 years to find a wrestler who was so essential to the construction and reconstruction of a promotion and be so successful at it at the same time. This is a guy who bore the weight of a company on his shoulders when it was at its lowest to bring it back to its highest, while in the meantime understanding everything that is good for the business, for his company. He doesn't call himself the ace of New Japan just out of a title. This is something that he wears with pride. He conducts himself as the face of New Japan wherever he goes. He's reached crazy amounts of popularity in Japan. He is an absolute draw and has been a draw, I would argue, for the entirety of the decade, compounded with fantastic other talent like Kazuchika Okada, like Tetsuya Naito, which he helped build. No doubt in my mind that Hiroshi Tanahashi is one of the top wrestlers of the decade. Noah Foster and Slam Hub Wrestling. How you doing? Welcome to the chat. Let's see here. Degeneration MC says Tanahashi was indeed the Japanese Cena, except it didn't take a decade of getting booed for fans to respect him as a performer/character. No, he was always over. Well, not over like that. He put a lot of work into it. But it was a gamble that paid off. He's so charismatic. Noah Foster says the ace will never stop. I don't think he will. And Slam Hub Wrestling says Tanahashi should be considered one of the influential wrestlers of all time. I mean, his legacy to me is so incredibly clear because he is an outstanding professional wrestler, and he really, really did bear. He bore a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure to get New Japan Pro Wrestling back into just a profitable state, much less where we are today. And sure, you can point to the Elite and say, oh yeah, but the Elite brought in a whole bunch of other viewers here. Sure. But, bring in the North American viewers, they're not going to buy tickets at home. Tanahashi is huge. He's a draw. He's the man. And he has the best hair in professional wrestling. Third guy that I want to talk about for my top 3 wrestlers of the decade is a guy who started 2010 in WWE and got fired. I'm talking about Daniel Bryan, who strangled Justin Roberts with his tie. Then he goes back to WWE, becomes U.S. champion. And there he initiated this long-standing feud with The Miz. And early on, he did get a world championship run and feuds with the Big Show and Mark Henry, stuff that we don't really remember. And there's reasons for that. But right then and there, back then, there was absolutely no question that Daniel Bryan was the most technically proficient and gifted wrestler on the entire WWE roster. And he connected in ways with the audience that were legitimate and real. There was no gimmick to Daniel Bryan. The gimmick to Daniel Bryan was being Daniel Bryan. That's all there was. And for all all the ups and downs, then for what especially like Team Hell No was. And I know a lot of people seem to think fondly back to the Team Hell No stuff. I don't. But I can see why some people dig it. I don't. But it did help create the Yes Movement. And the Yes Movement was a legitimate legitimate wrestling fan push. That was something that just happens and is one of the reasons why we love wrestling so much. When things just happen and they're not supposed to, they're not planned, they're not scripted, and they're just organic because it feels good. It just connects. The Yes Movement even helped WWE get some of that, that sweet mainstream media overlap, that they love so much, that just tastes so good. And of course, we all remember the Royal Rumble 2014, which was probably the moment where WWE where WWE hit that level, was like, oh, maybe we should start reconsidering what's going on here, because the WWE were, yeah, sure, the Yes things and Daniel Bryan, all cute, but we're still going to have Daniel Bryan and not enter the Royal Rumble, and we're going to have Batista show up out of nowhere, and he's going to win the spot to face Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30 that year. Yeah, if y'all were around, y'all remember the backlash to that. It wasn't pretty. It really, really was not pretty. And it's still to this day. a textbook example of WWE being completely tone deaf to what their audience wants. But they had to course correct here, and they gave Bryan a spot at WrestleMania, which was supposed to be just Randy Orton and Batista, like I said. And it turned into the real great underdog story that everyone bought into. And why did the audience buy into Daniel Bryan? Because he's relatable, because of his looks. He didn't look the part. He didn't look like what Vince McMahon perceives as a world champion. But it's also his ability in the ring. People saw that this guy could go. No one in the world can wrestle like Daniel Bryan can. Sure, the guy was an indie darling. That always helps. But there's a substantial amount of the WWE universe that has no idea what goes on in the independent circuit. Don't know that Daniel Bryan was one of the founding fathers of Ring of Honor, for instance. They don't care about that stuff. It's like, hey, introduce me to this right now. Of course, this led to his crowning moment at WrestleMania 30, where he had to win a match against Triple H to earn a spot in the main event to make it a triple threat. But what a wonderful, absolutely outstanding moment. Cathartic for Bryan and for the fans. Then, of course, 2016 rears its ugly head. And because of his style of wrestling, because of one too many bumps to the head, Daniel Bryan was told, you can't wrestle here anymore. It's time to retire. And he did. Which then led to his return. An impassioned, wonderful, enthralling return that no one thought was ever going to happen. But there he was. And there he still is, still back in the ring. And he ended, and not only did he come back to thrills where everyone is super excited, but he comes back, does his thing, and then has a heel turn. He does a heel turn, but he does a heel turn in the most Daniel Bryan way possible, where he still remains very, very true to himself, very, very close to who he is. There's nothing that's ever been outlandish about Daniel Bryan. And that's one of the reasons why he's always connected to the audience, because what you saw with the guy is what you got. As much as his persona or his in-ring work went. Absolutely fantastic worker. Will always be remembered as one of the greatest. But his 2010 was everything that he achieved was a battle and a struggle for him and for the fans who were there beside him the entire way. And look at where we are right now, ending 2019, heading into the new year, and we're back to the Daniel Bryan, clean shaved, ready to take on the world, but with all that experience behind him. This is a guy who fought his entire way to the top through terrible storylines and 5-star matches. The entirety of his 2010 decade has been about getting himself over, and kind of like AJ Styles, getting himself over, of course, but kind of like AJ Styles, breaking the mold of what we should expect from a champion, what we want as a champion. And for everything that he struggled and went through, yeah, of course. Wrestler of the Decade as well. Well, there we go, folks. Look, I'd have more to talk about. I have more to talk about regarding the Wrestler of the Year, but I am going to talk about some more. Not the year, the decade. Wrestler of the Decade. We're going to talk about the Wrestler of the Decade over on patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes in just a few minutes. I'm going to head over there to start the post stream. And we're going to be, so I invite everyone to come join us there on Patreon so that we can talk about it. We can have a good time chatting about more and bring your suggestions. I don't want it to be just like a one trick pony thing where I just spew into the camera, into the microphone here. No. Please come over. And I do want to take the time to thank the patrons who do support me in the Mr. Warren Hayes show, which comes at you every Thursday. I don't know what I'm trying to do here. I want to thank Smart to Death, Ryan Burke, Nick Wolf, Kristen Ashley, John Washaba, Jason Clay, Harmony, LNC, Ben Parizet, and Adam Bird. Thank you all for your unwavering support of the show. Hopefully we'll see you all there right after this so that we can continue this discussion. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone who came out this evening to join me here for the last Mr. Warren Hayes show of 2019. New Year's coming up. New Year's Eve is always a great time. Please, everyone, take good care of yourself and be safe. I like talking wrestling, and I like talking wrestling to all of you, and I want to be able to continue to do that to you and you and you in the new year. So please enjoy yourself, have a good time, but stay safe because I said so, goddammit. And I want to thank you all for your support throughout 2019. Man, look, 2019 was peculiar, but also beautiful. And one of the parts that made it beautiful was this podcast and having a chance to connect and chat with all you guys here live on Twitter, wherever. So thank you so very, very much for your support. Hope to see you soon. We'll see you in the new year.